company and running it for, I think, close to 40 years, if I'm not mistaken. Iconic legend from that standpoint. And really, I know there are many, many, many facets of people that are lovers of Baja and are not necessarily connected to the motorsport or off-road world. There's fishermen, there are deep sea divers, there are spear fishermen, there's surfers, there's overlanders, but I don't think any one of them will argue, because any of them that do travel the peninsula see the remnants of our culture. Off-road racing, motorsports, and desert racing has become a part of the culture of Baja, and there's no arguing that.
Definitely.
So Sal, when you mention Sal, just so the listeners understand, Sal is the godfather of all off-road racing. And what Matt is referring to about getting to have him ride in the front seat is, as kids, Sal was the guy that was creating the dream for all of the rest of us to live, and also living the dream right along with us. And what an honor that must have been to get to have Sal fish as the legend on the Legends Rally.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I've like I said, I got introduced to this whole culture as a kid, and so I watched him, and what's great about him is, he created a culture, and yeah, a lot of people played a part in that, but he was the ringleader,
Yeah.
And he was, he did it in a way that was very charismatic and made you want to be a part of it. And the way he treats people and the way that he carries himself is definitely something to be looked up to and emulated. And, I feel really proud to call him my friend and have had this, this experiences and other experiences, with him. And so, for me, that's part of what this is all about, is we have all these people within our culture that are incredible people. And that's why we call it the Legends Rally, is each one we choose a different legend and we have them guide, and we introduce people who are new to off-road to our culture, because that's an important part of all this, is that you can buy a UTV, a Jeep, or whatever vehicle and just be a person who operates a vehicle. But once you really dig in and you embrace off-road culture, it changes you. And, part of knowing who our heroes are, knowing who our godfathers and our predecessors who helped create this culture. And, so far we've had Larry Ragland, Larry Rossler, we had Sal, and we've had Walker Evans, so we've had some big names and some good ones. And,
I'm still waiting for my invite to be the legend.
You don't have enough gray on your head yet.
Okay.
We got to wait.
All right.
You got a couple of years, right? And and so that's the important thing for me is to show those guys respect and acknowledge that we see their contribution, and we're going to try and take this culture forward in a way that they've essentially taught us. So yeah, that was really cool. It was just awesome. And not to mention the fact that he chose 5 of his favorite tequilas and walked us all through that Saturday night. So, I was a little slow the next day, but man, it was awesome.
So yeah, let's do that. Like you mentioned, how'd you say it? You plan your life around food, or you navigate by food or whatever. And then I know that there's the other component is that you definitely are an aficionado of the spirits of agave. And
you're putting it politely.
So let's dive a little bit, and I'll tell you, I just watched a documentary on a Delta flight, and I can't remember the exact title, but it had the word agave in it. And I've actually been to the city of tequila. I've done the distillery tours, learned a lot about what all goes into making tequila, and understood a little bit about what the difference between tequila and mezcal is, but I learned a lot more watching that documentary. So and chime in here when you feel like it. But the one thing that really stood out to me was that people talk about mezcal as having this smoky, more of a mesquite type of a flavor, and so a couple things.
Sure.
Mezcal can come from any one of the 236 varietals of an agave plant, where tequila, to be called tequila, much like champagne, from the city of Champagne, has to come from the blue agave. And I believe it has. I think I was talking to a guy the other day. There's 7 regions where they will qualify, but it has to be from the blue agave plant. It can't be from another type of agave. But the other difference is that I believe agave or tequila, they take the pineapple from the agave plant, the blue agave, and they steam it. And if it's mezcal, they don't steam it, they actually roast it. And that's where the smoky mesquite flavor comes from.
They take the pineapple or the piña, they roast it in an oven, right? And that's what gives it its consistency and taste. And then beyond that, beyond that roasting, what flavors it, of course, is it's aging in its barrel, right? And then mezcal, the way that they cook the piña is open fire pit, right? So they stack a bunch of them around the fire, and they essentially burn them or roast them, right? So that's the difference in the process. But yeah, mezcal gets pretty wide, and that's what's great about it is, you got to try them all.
Maybe not all in the same evening.
Like mezcal better because the amount of variety, and I'm still sampling all those, so I've got a ways to go.
Have you been to tequila yet?
Yeah, actually our mutual friend Jim, while he was running Azuña, took me down. We shot a bunch of content
cool.
down there, and yeah, it was just beautiful, and the whole experience was incredible. And the distillery that was making his tequila was the real deal, hand harvesting, hand baking, and it was one of the things as it ties into off-road is that you're always connected to the earth somehow. You're tasting the dirt as you drive, there's this like minerally kind of experience that you just have. It's undeniable, right? And so then when you go and you try the fruit after it's baked, and then you try it after it's fermented, and and then even right after it's distilled, your brain connects the dots between why it tastes the way it does and the actual earth of that region. And the same thing is true of the tierra and wine, their terroir, as it is with tequila and beer and food in general, right? So that's all part of the experience and the taste of it, and it's really cool. Again, it's like going and having that experience with Jim was absolutely magical. And the town that we were staying in was this tiny little town called Amatitan, and more people rode around by horses there than by car or motorcycle. So it's the real deal.
So, and you're mentioning Jim again. It's Jim Riley, who actually he is the host of The Answer Is Yes, which Baja Sessions is a part of The Answer Is Yes. So we're all connected. That's the beautiful thing, man. It's this common thread that is woven through my life, connects me to people through Baja, and again, you're one of those. We don't need to stay on this topic of the place of Baja, and honestly, there's other aspects of you. We've talked about the Legends Rally. We've talked about Sal. We've talked about tequila. We talked about your cousin. And let's throw a bone out to Israel, because I know that he helps out a lot. But let's shift gears here a little bit. You have built an empire. You started off, and I'm going to kind of give the brief synopsis here, and then let you run with it. But you were a skater like myself, and through that ended up in the film production world, or maybe it was the punk rock side of it as well, or the music side of it, but eventually ended up
a little bit of both.
They kind of went hand in hand back then. But so you started a production company, creating content for a variety of different clients, but eventually hooked up with Ken Block. Is that a fair statement there? And then kind of, I mean, you can take it from there, because today you own a company called Mad Media, which is a media production company, and then you also have a property called the Mint 400, which anybody that's been in and around off-road racing knows what the Mint 400 is. Let's kind of we got another 20 minutes here. Let's kind of round out the story of Matt Martelli, so that we kind of have a full picture of who you are and what you do, and then tie it back into the Legends Rally and make sure that we find out when the next one's going to be.
Yeah, no, that's kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, through action sports culture, Ken and I met. He had a shoe company called DC Shoes, and he actually started it out of our college in Palomar, at Palomar College. So I was the teacher's assistant for the screen printing class there, and he would come in at night and print T-shirts. So, I knew him from his very humble beginnings, and I can't say enough good things about Ken. He is a remarkable marketer, and as he made more money, he decided to go rally racing, and he knew that I was a off-roader and a rally enthusiast. So, he said, "Hey, you want to come check this out?" And I did, and I went, and I was like, "Man, we gotta make films about this. This is bitching. Like, why doesn't everybody know about this?" And so, much like desert racing, it just didn't get a lot of media coverage. So, we started first by, building content around rally racing. And then, a couple of years into it, we ran into this problem that, like, no matter how much of the racing we showed, people wouldn't go out into the middle of nowhere and watch how incredible the vehicles and the drivers were. And again, it parallels desert racing. Is, if you've really gone out and been in the right spots, or you've driven yourself, it's incredible. There's no racing like it in the world. And I consider rally to be definitely a discipline of off-road. So we were trying to figure out, how do we show how remarkable the drivers and the vehicles are in a more condensed way, right? And so, Ken had showed me this, he actually showed my brother this discipline of Gymkanna, which was basically driving your car around obstacles, right? And it was pretty boring, so we didn't necessarily correlate the two. But he had this idea of building a custom vehicle and making it high horsepower, 4-wheel drive. And then, one of the locations that they did these competitions was the El Toro Air Base. And so, we were throwing ideas around, and Ken's like, well, let's just make a video of it, and we'll just go around El Toro, Air Base. And so my brother and I started distilling down, like, what are the remarkable things this car can do? And a lot of them, to be honest, were some of them were Ken's ideas, some of them were our ideas, but a lot of them, to be honest, we were not sure if they could be done. Like, you know, the opening drift where, he's doing 100 miles an hour down a airstrip, and he just chucks it sideways. You know, there were 6